Imagine this. It's college break, and you go back to your house to meet and catch up with a couple of your friends. You decide to go out for a few drinks, just to catch up. Well, the end of the night comes, and before you know it, you realize that you're a little intoxicated and you're uncomfortable driving. So what do? You hop in the car, and you tell the car, "Take me home." And before you know it, you're sleeping in your own bed, safe and sound. Now, once the stuff of science fiction, this is actually becoming science fact, with huge corporations such as Google, Uber, Apple, and even Tesla investing heavily in self-driving and autonomous vehicles. Now, today we'll be discussing the pros and cons that are associated with self-driving cars. Everyone in this group is very technologically savvy, and we've all studied this topic and done research extensively, both inside and outside of the classroom. Some of us have even been following the involvement of self-driving cars for several years now. Now, as college students, I know you're probably wondering, why do I really care about self-driving cars? And the fact of the matter is that this technology is emerging. We're young, and we're definitely going to see it emerge within our lifetimes. So I think that it's important that we all weigh the pros and cons that we present here today to develop our own opinion of self-driving cars so that we know how we feel about them when they actually hit the road. Now, there's many topics that we want to touch on today, but a few of them that we'll highlight. One of them that I'll be talking about in particular is that self-driving cars have the potential to eliminate a huge amount of traffic deaths.
Another idea we're going to touch upon is that self-driving cars are not programmed to react in specific scenarios where accidents are highly likely or unavoidable.
Also, we're going to take a look at how self-driving cars can reduce traffic in highly populated areas such as cities.
We'll also talk about self-driving cars might not be legalized under the current legal framework.
Now, believe it or not, driving your car is one of the most dangerous things that you'll do throughout the day. And in fact, you do it almost every day. And according to road crash statistics, nearly 1.3 million people die every year globally from car crashes and accident-related incidents. Now, most of these accidents can be attributed to human error, which obviously is something that self-driving cars wouldn't encounter. But human error, a lot of things lead back to humans have a tendency to become distracted. In fact, a recent study by AT&T showed that nearly 70% of people admit to looking at their smartphone when they're driving. And nowadays, we're not just talking about texting. People are doing everything from checking Facebook, Instagram, even posting Snapchats while they're driving on the road. So we're dealing with drivers that are very distracted, and that significantly increases the chances that they'll get into a car accident. Now, self-driving cars completely eliminate human error. As scary as it may sound, when you deal with self-driving cars, you're dealing with a computer, but that's consistency. Computers don't get tired. Computers don't get distracted. So self-driving cars really can eliminate this distraction from driving. In fact, according to Jack Boglin of the Yale Journal of Science and Technology, self-driving cars can now drive millions of miles without ever having an accident resulting from their own actions. Now, this is much, much better than you can say for any human driver who, on average, have an accident once every 150,000 miles or so. These accidents can be severe, and this research comes from Emily Silverman and Sabine Gless of the University of California Press. Now, if autonomous cars have such huge potential to reduce traffic deaths, then why don't we implement them?
Even though self-driving cars can eliminate considerable amount of traffic deaths, they are still not 100% safe. For example, self-driving cars have a lot more computers than a regular car. And just like an everyday person, you probably own a computer. And a computer can actually fail on you from like short-circuiting, wires that are messed up, and a dozen other things. But more importantly, in the July 2016 issue of Ethical and Moral Practice, Sven Nylund and Jill Smids mentioned that the reason why autonomous cars are not 100% safe is because the cars will drive with high velocity in the midst of unpredictable pedestrians, bicyclists, and human drivers. This is why cars should be programmed to behave differently where accidents are more likely to occur. For example, if a person is aware that a lot of kids play on a certain road or block, he or she will drive a lot slower, knowing that it's highly likely that a child will run in front of them. But the self-driving car will not be aware of the activity and will be driving at full speed, given the speed limit was 25 or 30. Also, Yang and Coughlin point out in their 2014 article in Vehicle Technology for Self-Driving Cars that a self-driving car will drive full speed if it doesn't know the area is unsafe. And this also ties back to the data I just mentioned. And another article, Why Self-Driving Cars Aren't Safe Yet, by Olivia Solon. She points out that autonomous cars are unable to predict urban conditions like an unmarked lane, heavy road work, which is pretty much the daily commute to the city for an average person. This will raise questions about self-driving cars and the preset priorities. Autonomous cars should be programmed in situations where an accident is unavoidable. In the 2015 article, How to Help Self-Driving Cars Make Ethical Decisions, author Will Knight explained that cars should be programmed how to crash. If a crash is unavoidable, the self-driving car should pick the ethical decision. So if a car has a choice to choose between crashing into a truck and killing its passengers, or swerving out of the way and driving into the sidewalk and killing a dozen pedestrians, how does it know what's the right answer? So this is the problem with self-driving cars. If these problems occur in self-driving cars, will they ever be 100% safe?
Now, I think it's worth noting that self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles in general are a relatively new technology. They've only been around for a few years now. But that being said, Google and Tesla have both already developed vehicles that can drive millions of miles without ever having an accident. Now, I know that there's a lot of things that need to be considered when we implement self-driving cars, but these really do hold the potential to reduce a huge amount of traffic deaths and car accidents in general. So it's a relatively new technology with further refinement. Who knows how safe these self-driving cars can get?
Building off of what Rob just said, as the technology progresses around these autonomous vehicles, so too will the benefits surrounding them. I'm here to argue that self-driving cars will reduce traffic in major cities and highways. In one article I found, published by Roman Zakharenko, vehicles are modeled, calibrated, and analyzed to be as efficient as possible. They are so efficient because these vehicles are connected. Because they are connected, there's far less human error that causes traffic jams such as fender benders on the highway. By eliminating this, we eliminate a lot of traffic that happens within our society, which is a problem in everyone's life. Also, in another article I found by Alariza Taler-Behar and Ani Mamasini, connected vehicles provide real-time information. And because these vehicles are connected through real-time information, they will be able to find the fastest possible route for the car to avoid congestion on highways and take other alternate routes to reduce traffic within the society, which will vastly help us.
Relying on self-driving car to improve traffic situation and avoid accidents is an ideal case built purely upon theory. In real life, the road situation is always more complicated than theory can predict. The self-driving car companies claim that there have not yet been any accidents in their test. However, there has been an accident involving this technology that has taken a man's life. Reported on New York Times, in July 2016, a driver was killed in an accident in Northern Florida while driving a Tesla Model S. The car crashed straight into a trailer, turning left at an intersection on the highway without stopping. The car has an emergency braking system installed that is meant to check for dangerous close-by objects. However, the system possibly failed to distinguish the trailer and the sky in this accident. Can technology react to all possible situations? Tesla claimed that their Model S autopilot car is not a hands-free driving car, and drivers are still responsible for the driving. However, this car being equipped with collision warning and driven by a human driver, was still not able to avoid the accident. How can we trust that a car fully driven by itself will get us safely from place to place? In addition to the technical details that we need to worry about before we put self-driving car on the road, there are many more things that we need to consider, such as the regulation and law on self-driving vehicles. The biggest question in law about self-driving car is its liability. When a self-driving car is involved in an accident, it makes sense that the manufacturer should be responsible since there is not really a driver in the car. However, this is far more complicated than just putting all the blames on the manufacturer when something goes wrong. Self-driving cars deal with unexpected events using complicated pre-programmed system. How it actually reacts to accidents depends on the calculated results that we might not expect. A news article on the Bloomberg website discussed a scenario. Should an autonomous vehicle sacrifice its occupant by swerving off a cliff to avoid killing a school bus full of children? On one hand, no one wants to sit in a car that has the potential to kill its owner for whatever reason. On the other hand, should the law even allow the car to make such decisions? As we can see, liability is an unavoidable issue that self-driving car companies need to deal with. And this might be discouraging for companies to continue improving their products. Paper, Autonomous Vehicle Regulation, How an Uncertain Legal Landscape Might Hit the Brake on Self-Driving Cars, points out the problem with an example of the biotechnology industry. In the United States biotechnology industry, lawsuits for product liability increased by 813% between 1980 and 1988. The International Trade Administration has identified that product liability law is a severe barrier for innovation in the biotechnology. Many drug companies are hesitant to produce new vaccines and potentially safer vaccines because of the sheer numbers of lawsuits that erupt when those new products are released. When self-driving cars are out in the market, the car companies will need to deal with the same challenge. Have self-driving car companies thought about this problem? Will they eventually back off and stop producing new self-driving cars? These are some big questions that self-driving car researchers might not have an answer to. With the current legal framework, there are many problems that need to be solved before self-driving cars should be legalized. Therefore, self-driving cars are still a far in the future concept.
Live legislation does not exist, it doesn't mean that they never will. With the advancement of autonomous vehicles, the legislator around them will have to be updated as well. In an article I found published by Doug Newcomb, self-driving cars are the thing of the future without question, meaning that we will definitely see them in our lifetime. With the more that they're being produced, they're constantly being upgraded to reduce risk, and also, as I mentioned before, they're being connected to reduce risk because they pick up on the mistakes the other vehicles make. In another article I found, it stated that by Ryan DeRusu, stated that self-driving cars will turn the automobile market around. As we all know, in today's society, money speaks to the government. With an increase in profit coming from self-driving cars opposed to normal cars, it's clearly we can see that legislature will favor the thing making it more money. In a study done, it was found that market for normal cars had dropped substantially since 2015, while self-driving cars have risen by 7.8% in the last year alone. With increased profit in cars correlates with more research and safer vehicles that will improve the legislature around them. To summarize our presentation, we've talked about both the pros and cons relating to autonomous vehicles. The pros we talked about were that self-driving cars have the potential to eliminate a huge number of traffic accidents, as well as in traffic in general. Some of the cons we spoke of are that self-driving cars are not programmed to react to specific situations, and also that there isn't legal framework currently that support self-driving cars. Before we leave you, I want to say that this argument brings about a bunch of things such as philosophy of decision-making, artificial intelligence, and human life. we suggest you guys to do your research now, because you never know, because the next car you might buy might be an autonomous one, and you should know what you're getting into before you buy.